Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
With over 4 decades of years of specialization in extending the outreach for the travel, tourism and hospitality sector, Bharat International Tourism Boutique or BITB has brought about an extension of the tourism industry at large, bringing new age drivers within their fold with innovative ideas for networking and knowledge sharing across verticals. With the aim of making tourism an engine of growth, BITB recently organized the 15th BITB Conclave, which brought together senior professionals and key stakeholders from within the industry to share their perspective and solutions on taking the sector to greater heights.
This is the 15th edition of BITB Conclaves since we started them in October 2016. And I may humbly or in all humility like to submit that some of the subjects that we have chosen in these 15 conclaves have been quite first-time activities for the tourism sector, including a Make in India in the tourism sector, which we did 2 years ago. And we've got one vertical on cinema tourism, which we've been having for the last 12 years. And I think this Paryatan se Parivartan was a thought which we had, particularly when this government came back to power. Having said that, I think there is still much more to achieve and much more for tourism to accomplish. And therefore, this one-off attempt to say, how can tourism make the change? And we've got some 40 people through the day speaking on different aspects of how tourism can bring about the change.
The conclave commenced with the first session where the panelists shared their insights on the topic, tackling an elitist image and how.
At the start of it all, is there an abject thinking within the minds of most of us that tourism has been ignored, has been given this so-called elitist tag, thereby depriving it of being considered as a mainstream economic multiplier and job provider? What has been the stance of governance? Let's start by asking Vinod Dugalji, who's obviously worked very closely with governments, to tell us why, first of all, if what I said is true, and secondly, why is it so?
We have to work in this country to make the domestic tourism, not only it will grow on its own steam, but the comforts for the domestic tourists, whether they are visiting hill stations, whether they are visiting the other areas and like that.
Domestic tourism, I know, is 1.7 billion, but that is the same wealth circulating amongst ourselves. But even if a domestic tourist is staying in a dharamshala, if he buys a loaf of bread or a matchstick or
Correct.
even a comb, it
Correct.
has an effect on the economy. And there is a creation of jobs. So we have to have both.
When we talk about tourism and elitism, I think this word elitism can be spread a little lower as well. Because every tourist should be treated like a welcome visitor. And if that welcome visitor gets the basic comfort, cleanliness, convenience in traveling, facilities around, that tourist feels like an elite.
I think I would say this is the time for the industry and also for the departments and also for the ministry to actually relate that this is a common man's, not pastime, but it's common man's now desire to travel.
It's been said so that do we want tourism? Are we ready for tourism? What are we doing to promote tourism? However, whatever we are doing is nothing. Half-hearted attempts are there because it's every time it's looked at how you can tackle and hurt the hospitality. Today, that is the attitude. And I think we have to change that attitude.
In my opinion, tourism is in fact major fact in the change in this country and will bring huge impact in the employment opportunities, national integration, as well as image of the country.
Going forward, India is a mid-market growth story. Almost 60% of the new hotels that are coming up in this country are coming up in Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets. And 90% of the demand in India is domestic. So, of course, you know, the FTAs and the dollar-paying client is, of course, very important to all of us. But I think it is an industry now which is easily accessible to the mid-market customer.
In the second session, notable speakers shared their views on the topic, special tourism zones work, why and how.
The government of India needs to create such tourism zones in every state or in the country on the places of tourist interest. In the 12th five-year plan, 20 tourism zones were sanctioned with an outlay of roughly 1,000 crore. Unfortunately, till date, not even one tourism zone has been created.
What is the need? Niti Aayog should take up a special zone development pilot projects such as Braj. So we should create a special tourism zone which you talked about, and we should jointly plan the development of a zone and to maintain it and to run it and to market it.
The phasing strategy, whether it is from the government perspective or whether it is from the private sector perspective, should be correct. We should not put anything into the market so early when it is not sellable. Unless and until we are in a position to build on the infrastructure, unless and until we are able to deliver on our promises, no private sector is there sitting for charity.
AeroCity, I think in many ways, when I look at other airports talking about AeroCities, Delhi Airport had by default, a fantastic sort of a geographical positioning between Gurgaon and Delhi. So I think central accountability, a regulator to look at ongoing performance, but clearly it's the way to go, and it will only foster better growth in the tourism business.
We need to maybe work with the government to identify large areas that can be given off to a private sector that can come in and make not just 4 or 5 hotels. You know, 10 hotels, 15 hotels don't make a tourism zone. A tourism zone means, yes, convention center, hotels. We need to think a little bit outside the box.
A key highlight at the conclave was an insightful keynote by Rajiv Sethi, Chairman of Asian Heritage Foundation.
Now friends, today we have gathered here to celebrate tourism and development. So what's the new story? We know love for diversity, travel and decentralized livelihood are tourism's passport to the future. I also hope tourism will lead us to a world without passports. I think tourism has now a very critical role to play, and it must not take us away from Parivartan. And to really define that Parivartan will mean looking within. Thank you.
This session of connectivity, skill sets, heritage and carrying capacity saw the coming together of industry professionals who shared their perspective on the topic.
Maureen, may I request you to please share with us a little perspective on bringing museums alive and why and what they can do for our tourism product. Thank you.
What you do need is you need designers, you need people who are creative enough, and you need to have people who are familiar enough with the museum and its collections to develop products that are based on that. And this is what people want when they come to a museum shop. They want to take back a portion of that experience that they have had there. So this is the essential.
I think one of the major things which this government and any other government must think is that infrastructure must improve drastically around the sacred spaces, and also management. Management of these sacred areas is a huge, important thing.
Being in India, keeping the intangible heritage of things alive is something that needs to be very, very important. There's a small snippet which tells us how powerful our culture is, how powerful our intangible heritage is. You start with English, when you start with A, it starts with apple as we're always taught, and ends with Z on 0. But when you come to our own language, when you come to our own heritage, which starts with which is Anpad, and which goes and stops at Gya, which is Gyani. So जब हम शुरुआत करते हैं A से एप्पल से और Z पे 0 पे जाके ख़त्म करते हैं, और जब हिंदी भाषा के अंदर हम शुरुआत करते हैं अ से अनपढ़ से ज्ञ पर ज्ञानी पर जाके हम ख़त्म करते हैं. So that is the strength of our culture. That is the strength and the power of our heritage. The question is, the time has come that we recognize this.
To me, the radical solution is, what can we do? When I say low-hung fruits, why can't we privatize the IHM system? When you think about it, the government tried to, and the government divested and privatized ITDC 10, 15 years ago. And while it took a lot of issues and challenges, but if you can privatize hotels from the government, education for that sector, I don't think the government has any business being in it.
I think the way forward really is to determine the carrying capacity of areas. And even in areas where it's gone crazy, we need to revisit carrying capacity. We need to open new areas, in a very, very sensible and sustainable manner. The Ministry of Tourism has forwarded a proposal to the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, and we are hoping that this is going to lead to an opening of our natural heritage in a very, very sensitive manner.
It is recognized that India's population in tourism, potential in tourism is yet to be achieved. The potential of the tourism sector for generating employment revenues is also recognized. It is, however, to be noted that India's tourism assets are under threat from unregulated tourist flows and are fast losing their attraction.
I think there's a great deal to learn. I learned about museums, I learned about monuments, I learned about the involvement of youth, I learned about adventure tourism, and that's as far as I've been a part of so far.
I think it's an extremely relevant theme, and more importantly, it is talking about the transformation not just with one aspect of tourism, but covering everything to do with tourism, including heritage tourism, including education and skills, including what we need to do to improve the infrastructure here. So yeah, I think it was a very interesting theme.
I think they've covered interesting and important fabrics that need to be discussed today. These things cannot be kept in the cupboards anymore. These things do need to be brought out. They need to be put in open forum. Views need to be taken on them. But at the end of the day, a vision remains a vision unless it's acted upon. So I'm sure that the leaders that are present here, the subjects that have been talked about and spoken, somebody is going to do some action on it.
Paryatan se Parivartan, hosted by BITB, is an amazing platform which is bringing together the best minds and the most experienced minds, both from the industry as well as from the government. And this is a great platform which addresses our issues. And I think such conferences and platforms are rare to find and very valuable ones. I wish them all the best.
The 15th BITB Conclave, Paryatan se Parivartan, brought together senior professionals and stakeholders from the travel, tourism and hospitality industry to share their perspectives and solutions on diverse issues concerning the sector. Puneet Chatwal, CEO and MD at IHCL, gave a keynote on tourism's role in bringing about a change.
Tourism helps in building nations, it helps in building societies, it helps in building cultures, and it helps in the growth of the country in all sectors, including infrastructure, including openness, including tolerance. I think if we have the culture of collaboration and if we think we are a family, then I would like to call it that Parivar se hota hai Parivartan. So let us now work together, as I truly believe that the success of our industry is in our hands, and it is up to us to make that collaborative leap of faith. Thank you.
The keynote was followed by a session where the panelists shared their views on the topic, investing in tourism and hospitality.
I think we're looking at a very, very strong and robust tourism sector. There is only one way for us to go, which is up, because we're operating on a very small base for a country of India's size, for a country of the way our economy is shaping up. I think we are on a very, very strong growth path. But unfortunately, I think the investments into the private sector have not been forthcoming.
People who are constructing hotels, they'll find that things are not happening at the lower level. But I think, so it has to be either driven somehow. How long it takes to, get the permission, and every single, I know we've been trying to make a hotel in Delhi and then we gave up because there's a tree department. So, you have to go through that. There's a traffic department. So sequentially you have to go through permission.
I think we kind of don't understand the wood from the trees. Let's get basic, let's get 3 points into it, which every state and every department can focus because it's a common piece, which is skilling, which is infrastructure, and the quickness of decision making. Forget about infrastructure, I don't think we'll ever get it.
If we can emphasize on the powers that be, that we need a body, a collective body, which can say what needs to be done. That body should be made accountable, whether we call to set up tourism zones or infrastructure, licensing or whatever it is.
There's no doubt the opportunity in India is enormous. We believe in the India growth story as an organization in all the sectors that we operate in, and we are completely committed to carrying out development work in our country. We also believe over time we have learned the industry is very overcapitalized. I think a lot has been errors made by all of us as developers. So we believe if you continuously innovate, build efficiently, be tight on resources, you can bring your build costs down, and you can create some sort of an environment where your balance sheets can look healthy.
We have been wanting to invest in hospitality, in building hotels in India over the last 10 years. We bought land in Surat, we bought land in Cochin, we bought land in Noida. By the time we were able to secure the approvals, the whole feasibility had changed. And we decided that it was a better idea to sell the land and exit. And that's when we decided that probably the right way to go here is to leave building of the hotels to the people locally in different states and get into the management business.
In the final session of the conclave, panelists deliberated upon the topic joining the dots in the industry and government.
So I think tourism is necessary for government to give top priority to the government, and they should set up a special committee for tourism to deal with the specific problems that the industry is facing and have a 5-year plan.
I think it is extremely important that the leader of the team has to have that push, has to have that drive for 2 things. One, across the government, he should be heard and there should be some action. And 2, he should have time for the industry. He should have time for the players in the tourism sector.
We'll have to put more airports. The growth of airports in India can be directly linked to the number of foreign tourist arrivals in the country. Our wish list is we need the airport at Jewar, the second airport in Delhi, and the second international airport in Mumbai.
I think we should be fighting for a 5-year free tourist visa. Even if we follow it for 1 year, 2020, let's do that.
What we have proposed to the Committee of Secretaries for consideration is that we said let's have 3 targets. One is to double the number of foreign tourist arrivals from 10 million to 20 million in the next 5 years. 5 million, create 5 million additional jobs. It is currently at 62. We think we need to push it to 65 and increase the contribution of tourism to the GDP from the current 65,000 crores by 40,000, which makes it 1,05,000 crores.
And have the privilege of concluding that there is a very nice song or a bhajan which I hear. काम करते चलो, नाम जपते चलो, याद आएगी उनको कभी ना कभी, कृष्ण दर्शन तो देंगे कभी ना कभी. So you carry on with your work. I mean, I can't go on beyond and say I will accomplish this. I have no executive power.
The 15th BITB conclave brought together industry professionals and stakeholders who, through the medium of keynotes and panel discussions, deliberated on key issues concerning the travel, tourism and hospitality sector and created a synergy among industry stakeholders for a meaningful interaction and exchange of ideas.
It covered all the pain points of the industry, and it seems that at the conclusion we'll draw a document which will state what we are, what we need to do and what is the way forward.
ये पर्यटन से परिवर्तन बड़ी इम्पोर्टेंट थीम है और बड़ी अच्छी आज चर्चा हुई है। सवेरे से बड़े टूरिज्म के एक्सपर्ट्स आए हुए थे पुराने और उन्होंने बड़े अच्छे सुझाव दिए हैं।
I think the good thing about this conclave is just doesn't talk about tourism purely from a tour operators or a hospitality or a airline perspective. Is about in art and craft and a lot to do with weavers and things like that. Is giving a whole holistic approach in addressing not just tourism on its own, but also as tourism as a part of the cultural fabric of the country. So that's really, really nice.
I think this theme is very useful and extremely timely. This is also the right time because the new government has taken over. I think it's important for us as an industry to look at where we are and where we need to go and strategize and sort of bring a cogency to it. I think this is very useful in that sense, that it brings all the stakeholders together to envision what the next plan of action should be.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.